Well, pig tits, I guess it's about time I reviewed a good goddamn game. Today I'm going to review some games that I absolutely loved growing up. It's WWF Royal Rumble for both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. These were games that I'd pick up at the video store when I went there on Friday afternoon after school. These were known as safe games. Games that I knew would at least be decent. I'd rent one of them and then rent one that I wasn't so sure about. The one I wasn't so sure about would either turn out to be a gem or a big fat piece of digital shit. But today we're talking about the safe ones. Well, I mean, it's a WWF game. How in the fuck can you fuck that up? And when I heard as a kid that this one was actually going to have the Royal Rumble match in it, I was so excited to play it, I practically beat the shit out of a kitten while waiting for this game. I still remember finding it at my local video store, bringing it home, all excited to play it, and after playing an hour of Naked Twister with my stepdad, as was a customary Friday afternoon growing up. Well, he'd give me a six-pack to help me forget about that, and I'd be off to my room to play WWF Royal Rumble. When I popped it in, did I get a mediocre wrestling game? Well, hell no. I got one of the best wrestling games ever made. So let's start with the SNES version.
Okay, so both versions of the game have 12 wrestlers to choose from. Both the Genesis and the SNES have Randy Savage, Bret Hart, Crush, why the fuck did they include him, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, and Lex Luger. Exclusively to the SNES version is Mr. Perfect, Tatanka, Ted DiBiase, Yokozuna, and the legendary Ric Flair. The two roster switches caused the Genesis version to come out months after the SNES version. Okay, so in the SNES version, there's a one-on-one mode, a tag team mode, and a triple tag team mode. But you know what? Fuck that. Let's just jump right into the goddamn Royal Rumble. Okay, so with the Royal Rumble match, you start off as number one, which would actually become the standard way Royal Rumbles would be done in video games for years to come. If your guy was eliminated early enough, however, you could take control of another one. Do it quickly, because in this version, you could have up to 6 wrestlers in the ring, unlike WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, which you could only have 4 in a ring. I don't know why a next-gen system took a backward step in the number of opponents in a ring, but fuck it. Well, anyway, it's been almost 20 fucking years since this game came out, and it is still fucking awesome. But before I leave the SNES version, I guess I'm going to cover the championship mode. Now, it's the same in both the Genesis and the SNES version, so I'm only going to do it fucking once. Okay, so there's 2 championship modes in both games, either tag team or one-on-one. They both basically consist of the same thing. You end up beating the shit out of the rest of the roster. At the final match, when you win, either Mean Gene or Howard Finkel, I can't really tell which one, will come in and award you the title, and you get this bitching ending. Probably the shittiest cover to a WWF magazine ever made to honor the new champ. Whoopee.
Well, that's the SNES version of the game, and to be honest, there's not all that much for me to get pissed about. The controls in this game are pretty good, and it definitely stands the test of time. So you know what? How about one more drink? And let's move on to the Sega Genesis version of things.
Okay, so the big difference already for the Genesis version is the roster change. Sega exclusive characters are Papa Shango, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, IRS, the model Rick Martel, and the greatest fucking wrestler of all time, Hulk Hogan. I'm sorry, was there any good reason not to have Hulk Hogan in the SNES version? No, I can't think of one either. Basically, everything is the exact same, and it should be because Acclaim made both games. The only thing I wish Acclaim had done is make this version a little more compatible with the Genesis's 3-button controller. Instead, they compensated for the lack of buttons by having A and B do one thing, A and C do another move, B and C. So, fuck it. Let's check out the Royal Rumble mode at least. Alright, the difference here with the Sega one is it's a little clunkier and harder to time. The SNES version, you can whip guys over in nothing flat. With the Genesis, it's a little harder to time that. Your best bet is to beat the shit out of them until you can throw them over automatically. This is possibly due to the fact that the Sega version is actually running a little faster than the SNES, but it was at the expense, a slight expense of graphics. I would review the championship mode for this, but as I stated, it's the exact same fucking thing, and I've already reviewed it once, so fuck it. I'm gonna just jump straight into comparing the two.
Well, which one is better? That's the 3,000 taco question. For control, I'm going to go with the SNES. It's easier because the SNES controller has 6 buttons, and it seems to be a little bit smoother. Graphics, sound, and gameplay is a dead tie. Figuring out which is better comes down to a matter of personal opinion, plus a lot of fucking nitpicking, so fuck it, it's tied. Rosters, I'm actually going to go with the Sega Genesis version. Why? Hulk fucking Hogan. And if that's not reason enough for you, then fuck it, make your own goddamn review. The only thing I have left to say is, why in the name of holy Christ was the Genesis version of this game made by Flying Edge and the Super Nintendo version made by LJN? I guess it's time for the Angry Game Reviewer to go on another one of his investigations.
Well, I guess I have enough wall art. I guess I can probably start the goddamn investigation finally.
Well, after an exhaustive amount of research, both Flying Edge and LJN were owned by Acclaim at the time. Now, you're wondering, why the fuck would Acclaim bother with separate video game labels? Well, actually, in the late 80s and early 90s, at the resurgence of the video game industry, Nintendo put in very strict controls of how many games one company could produce in 1 year for their system, and I believe Sega had the same restrictions. This led companies like Acclaim, Capcom, and Konami to create dummy labels. Labels that they could basically get around the limits of how many games they could produce in 1 year. But by the early 90s, which is why it's a little odd that these two games have two different labels, most of those restrictions were rescinded, relaxed, or, done away with altogether. If I had to guess, the reason that these two games share two different labels is the fact that this was nothing but a money grab from Acclaim. they knew that the Genesis and the Super Nintendo had their respective audiences. And there were the fierce, loyal fans to both of them. But most people, and I was among this group, had both systems. And I think they were just trying to cash in on the fact that we might buy both copies. So, was it a mistake? No. Was it pretty shitty? Yeah. But you know what? Both games are great. Both games stand the test of time. And you know what? I'm going to drink beer till I play another shitty fucking game.